Hello everyone, and welcome to the second part of our three-part series of online workshops this autumn. My name is Bertie Hurtage and I'm a crowdfunding coach here at Crowdfunder UK. And today specifically, we're going to be looking at creating your project. So that specifically is adding your project to the website and learning a bit about how to craft your story. So, just to introduce our guest here, we've been very kindly joined by Gary from Borrow Don't Buy, who recently ran a successful crowdfunder with us. Hello, Gary.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. So, just to kind of briefly touch it's involving is a part about planning your project, where we looked at last week, and this involves kind of drawing a network map, identifying all of the different groups that live within your audience, and making a really solid plan to ensure that you know exactly what to do over the 4 weeks that you're going live. Today, as mentioned, we're talking about creating your page on the website and crafting your story. And next week, we're going to be looking at running your project. So learning what to do once you click that go live button. So as ever, we've got fantastic resources available for you. In particular, relevant to this section is the guide, the online PDF called Creating Your Project. And this is really the best kind of resource to understand what you need to do to put a really good project together and ensure its success. You can download these off the Eventbrite link on which you signed up, or they're available at www.crowdfunder.co.uk/guides. So the best kind of resource that we've got are lots of different examples within the guides. So when you have a look in that Creating Your Project guide, you'll have an example template of how to put your project together, and lots of fresh examples of successful projects who have crowdfunded with us before and put together really good pages. And beyond the guides, of course, we've got our website, which includes thousands of successful crowdfunding projects, which are searchable via categories. So based on what your project is, do you have a look through the website? That particular section lives on the bottom of the page. Pick your category and you can search through the projects that existed on Crowdfunder via most funded, recently successful, to get a flavor of what other people have done. And this is really your opportunity to become a critic and to understand what they did really well, or what they didn't do well, and how you can apply that to your own project. So today, as mentioned, we've got Gary from Borrow Don't Buy joining us today. So thanks very much for joining the webinar. Gary, it'd be great to hear a bit about Borrow Don't Buy, why you decided to crowdfund, and what you've managed to achieve.
Yes, no problem. Thanks, Bertie. Yeah, so Borrow Don't Buy is a community project. We've been talking about it since about the beginning of the year. Between the four of us and a few other people that we know, we've got a lot of gadgets. We've got a lot of tools and equipment that we have been lending out to people over the past kind of year and a half. So we've somewhat been doing Borrow Don't Buy, but just not officially, for a while now. So Borrow Don't Buy is basically a library of things. It's a bit of an American idea that's come over to the UK very recently. There are ones in Edinburgh, Cardiff, Totnes, and there's one in another place the name escapes me now where it is, but there's basically 5 in the UK at the moment. And in Plymouth, we are now opening up the 6th one called Borrow Don't Buy. It's basically where you can borrow things from people. So you can borrow pressure washers, sewing machines, chocolate fountains, video players, all the kind of stuff that you might have a need for every now and then, but not necessarily the space to have it at home all the time. I think we all know we've all got pressure washers that sit gathering dust in a garage somewhere, or drills that get out, get taken out once or twice a month. So we're kind of we're leading that charge of maintaining and keeping all that kind of stock in a library, and making it very easy and making it very affordable to hire that kind of stuff from us. All of the items will be hired out at between 50p and £10 each. And it's all going to be, we're going to source high quality second-hand items as much as we possibly can. So we're going to be largely relying on donations and things like that with it. A part of Borrow Don't Buy, we're also running repair cafes, which basically we're encouraging people to bring in tech and items and household equipment that is broken, that we've then got a few of us, like I call them, like we've got some James May types in our office that love to fix things. So we bring them in, we try and fix them, and then people can carry on using their stuff. So it's about trying to get away from this disposable society that we're starting to become part of, and hopefully doing better things with that. And that's Borrow Don't Buy. The main reason we decided to crowdfund is because when we identified the amount of money we needed to set Borrow Don't Buy up and to do a really good job of it, we realised that we needed just over £7,000. That's a lot of money, obviously. None of us had the money to start off. We didn't know any eccentric billionaires that could help fund us. And we wanted to, it's a community project, so we need the backing of members and we need the backing of people there. So it was actually really important to get the community interested in the project, which is a great way of Crowdfunder. And the actual Crowdfunder platform is a great way of getting the community involved with your project as well. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Gary. That's really helpful. Borrow Don't Buy have put together an excellent crowdfunding campaign, and it's really kind of spreading throughout the UK, the idea, and there are lots of other communities who are very much interested in putting one together themselves. So I think you're certainly onto a great thing. And to mention that you raised over £11,000 from over 150 different supporters. So essentially, those are all kind of new advocates and hopefully customers for the business. So in crowdfunding, today we're talking about creating your project. So it would be really good to hear about kind of what you think is the most important thing when starting to craft your crowdfunding page, and what your top tips might be for actually telling your story.
Yes, so I think probably when you're looking at stuff, absolutely without a shadow of a doubt, we looked at, and all of the advice and stuff on the Crowdfunder website was excellent. We are very lucky and very fortunate to have someone that works in the same city in Plymouth. She's called Rachel Dobbs. They're running a crowdfunding campaign, and I think you guys on Crowdfunder actually featured her blog very recently. She's a fantastic crowdfunder. She's written a lot of blogs on it. She is really, really good. Their crowdfunding campaign was around about the same time as us. They raised £1,000 in 48 hours. So we've discovered it is very much about the way you run the campaign, what the rewards are, much more so, and the people, much more so than your actual target in some ways. We knew that our target was quite ambitious, so that we knew, personally for us, we knew that we needed to have a really good reason there. We need to have a really good social purpose behind what our crowdfunding campaign was, so that it actually got people on board with what they wanted. Rewards, of course, were another really important thing. For us, it was very important that we built the community as we were building up Borrow Don't Buy. A library of things is all well and good if we'd raised £7,000, but if we'd raised £7,000 and had 50 backers, that would be largely useless to us, because we needed a good 100 or so people to get going with it. Very much a kind of word of mouth community campaign. I think my only other advice would be is you need to be realistic with what you think you can achieve as well. I see a lot of crowdfunding campaigns that are people that are just trying to fund what is essentially a personal project. And I think that makes it a lot more difficult to raise a lot of money. There definitely needs to be a really good community kind of goal behind it, or there needs to be really, really good rewards behind it. That would be my probably two biggest and best suggestions.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gary. Yes, I completely agree. I think you have to think about what is the most realistic target for your project. So there's lots of guidance on that in the Creating Your Project guide, where it will give you kind of a few tools to work out the size of your proposed audience and the target that would be appropriate for your campaign. I'd certainly recommend starting with the minimum you need and then putting in a really good plan to overfund, as you can always stretch your target. So we're going to have a look at some of the more kind of particular advice we offer from Crowdfunder about crafting your story. And we've got another example here that we touched on last week from Cycling Without Age. Now, Cycling Without Age, if you haven't heard of them, are a volunteer-run organisation which started in Denmark in 2012, which facilitates volunteers to travel around with a particular type of bike, which has the pedals at the back and a seater for two at the front, which enables volunteers to visit care homes throughout the UK and over the world, in fact, to take elderly residents out of the home and back into their community. And Cycling Without Age raised over £43,000 from 378 backers in 28 days. And I think they put a really good page together. And within the second guide on creating your project, we offer some advice around the key details that you need to include within your page to ensure that there's the right information on there to draw your audience in and to get them incentivized and inspired to support your project. So first of all, with these three areas that we're going to discuss, make sure that you're able to draft these and in a succinct and straightforward way, and that you get very good at kind of running people through that information. So when it came to Cycling Without Age, they started with their aim. So what are you trying to achieve? The aim of this crowdfunder is to allow us to bring this project to more care homes across Scotland. And that section, what we call the introduction to your project, is really your opportunity to give a short, sharp, concise summary about what it is that you hope to achieve. So someone can learn from that quickly what it's about and then be encouraged to read more. So the second major piece of advice we would offer is, and that you should get very familiar with understanding, is what makes your project great. So this is when you should pull out like all of the key themes involved of your project, so that it's very easy for someone to understand why it's so important what you're trying to do. And you should very much try and hone this piece of your description down so that you get really, really good at explaining it to people, whether it's via your crowdfunding page, or it's someone in the street, it's your best friend, it's your family, or a corporation that you're interested in getting pledges from. But in the example of Cycling Without Age, what they did was, in terms of what made their project great, is too often when our senior citizens become confined to their homes, they lack the freedom to get outdoors and explore the world around them. So this project allows them to engage with passers-by, take in the fresh air and the environment, and reintegrate themselves into society. And CWA, Cycling Without Age, have specifically designed trishaws to allow local volunteers to visit care centres and bring senior citizens back into the community. So they've really kind of made it very clear that they're tackling themes around social isolation, that they are trying to build stronger communities, and at the same time healthier and more active communities where people who might be interested in cycling or in getting involved in their own environment and society more have the opportunity to do so through Cycling Without Age. And thirdly, what's really important to look at is who you are and what your experience is. So this is your opportunity to tell people exactly why you're the right person to run this project, but also to put your face behind it. And adding a bit about your profile and yourself builds credibility on the page. It creates a human, relatable element and further trust in your project. So for Cycling Without Age, who are you and what's your experience? We are a voluntary community group based in Falkirk in Scotland who are part of the global initiative Cycling Without Age. And that Cycling Without Age features in 1,000 care homes in over 30 countries worldwide. So they've certainly built their credibility around the breadth of the organisation and the sheer amount of countries that are involved. And he goes on to explain a bit about himself. He's a 20-year-old student living in Falkirk, and he was awarded in 2015 the Sports Scotland Volunteer of the Year. And he himself is responsible for spearheading the launch of Cycling Without Age throughout Scotland. So he himself is obviously set the standard. He is an ambitious, hardworking individual who's been recognised already in his local community and throughout Scotland as someone who can get things done and who is tackling these kinds of issues head on. It's certainly about crafting your story. So really do have a think about what your messaging is, and it's worth writing your description, sharing it with some friends and family and getting their opinion. Did they understand the importance of what you're trying to achieve? And beyond the words that you're using, try to incorporate some visual texture into the page to paint as clear a picture as possible about what you're intending to do. And the way you can do that is through a variety of images. So they might be you yourself, your team, the area in which Cycling Without Age or whatever your crowdfunding project is operating in, and potentially rewards are available. Testimonials of people who are advocates of the project or have experienced the challenge that you are trying to tackle. Headings to split apart your content so it's really easy for someone to pick out the key information, and infographics. So ways of displaying information other than writing pure facts and figures. So often we see pie charts when explaining the budget that you're raising funds for. It's a very kind of good visual representation of figures which can otherwise be a bit dreary. So here is an example of Cycling Without Age's description that we're going to take a look at, and just as a demonstration of how they've picked out some of the key themes. So just wait for that page to load up. There we go. So they've incorporated their logo and their branding, which is very important for the wider organization. They've got the project owner, Fraser, in action. You've got titles splitting apart the content, and you've got some visual context around the people who are involved and have benefited from the scheme. And furthermore, if you look closely, there's a BBC Three icon there to show some credibility for where it's featured. You've got a testimonial in there from someone who has benefited from the scheme, who says that there's been a huge difference in Mary since Cycling Without Age. Her eyes look completely different. They're back to what they were years ago. And at the bottom, you've got a big group photo of all the people involved to give you an idea of the scale. So now we are going to have a quick look at the rewards to give you an idea of how you can start to create rewards that might be specific to your project. The aim of the game is to refer it back to your network map in that first exercise we talked about in the planning process. and making sure that you've got a reward available for each of those different groups that you're trying to approach. So thanks for bearing with us, Gary. It would be great to hear a bit more about kind of how you chose your rewards for Borrow Don't Buy, and which were the most effective.
Yes. So when we were planning out rewards, as we've already said, the one important thing was to make sure that we actually built our community as we were crowdfunding. So the reward that almost all of our backers got was some kind of membership to the Library of Things to begin with. So at a minimum, they got 3 months worth of membership. Some people got 6 months, some people got a year. The most popular one was the one that gave you the first 3 months of membership to the Library of Things. So they got something that helped them feel like they were part of the community and part of bigging something a bit bigger and starting to build something up. And they were on the ground floor of this kind of quite exciting new idea for Plymouth. We also then kind of we looked at trying to appeal to the kind of the shiny side. The people like shiny things. So we were giving away little 3D printed key rings for Borrow Don't Buy. And we were giving away a certain amount of other things. So some of the backers got a certain amount of time getting some opportunities to learn some new digital skills through our kind of our community interest company, where we provide digital skills training as well. So some people got that opportunity to learn some new stuff, which some people took on really well. I think some of the stuff that worked really well, throughout the whole thing, we actually planned to do some little surprise rewards as we went through it. So at one point we put out a little post on Facebook and Twitter to say the next person that backs us will take you out for ice cream down in Plymouth. We got a backer within about an hour. We then offered to take someone out for burger and chips, which again, we got them within about 20 minutes. And I think probably one of the most successful ones, we did a mystery box, which was basically filled with loads of chocolate and sweets. And again, within the hour, someone backed us on that. So actually a couple of little surprise rewards really just help people that we already knew were going to back us. And it just helped them to just make that decision, really.
Brilliant, thanks, Gary. And yes, I completely agree. From your perspective, the most important reward that you had was the membership, and I think that applies to lots of different types of projects that consider your kind of main business interest, whether that's getting your product out there or your service out there. That should certainly feature as a reward. And as you mentioned yourself, you can add rewards as you go throughout your crowdfunding campaign, and that can form quite a nice piece of content to include to update your audience and re-engage them as you go. So we're going to have a quick look at the specific advice that Crowdfunder offers around the different types of rewards available. And we split these up into 4 different categories. So products or services, as discussed, that's what Borrow Don't Buy we're offering in that effect. But it could be if you're a brewery, that you can literally offer the beer that you propose to make through your crowdfunding platform. Or maybe you're a bakery, and once you're open, you're able to deliver a loaf of bread to a supporter every week for a month as a reward. Experiences or events, these are a fantastic opportunity to create a bit of brand history and to engage directly with your community. So whether that is specific to your business or your organization, or something external that you can organize to tempt people in around what they might be interested in. Sponsorship, this can be on a small scale or a very large scale. We tend to associate for these types of rewards with corporations. So that might be the opportunity to include their branding or their logo within marketing material in store or on the website. And of course, thank you. We do recommend that you include some rewards around the £10, £20 mark. Which can offer work as kind of basic thank yous. We do see a lot of pledges around those areas. The reason why essentially we include rewards on pages is because it has the effect of increasing the average amount pledged. So on a donation-based project with no rewards, the average is around £11. But with a range of good rewards, the average is bumped up to around £50. So we're going to have a look now at the different rewards, examples of some rewards available. The first of which is from a project called For the Love of Food, who crowdfunded with us recently. A couple of guys travelled throughout the UK capturing all these incredible stories about food producers in the UK, and they compiled a book together which they crowdfunded to publish. So of course, the first reward that they should have is the actual book itself. So if they hit their target, they'll be able to deliver on on this particular book, and they had a nice twist there. I put fastest finger first. For £25, first 50 books available. Price goes up after that. We've got Borrow Don't Buy's 3-month reward. So for £10, you become a regular borrower and have a membership for 3 months, plus a particular keyring that you get with it, which is a really, really good reward, as it turned out as well. Experiences and events. This is the Horniman Museum in London, and they're offering tickets to late night viewings of the actual museum itself. So for £20, once the crowdfunder has ended, February next year, you can visit the museum with a friend in the evening and have the place to yourselves to look around. We've got an example of a premiere ticket below. So this is from Washed Up, a recent film who crowdfunded with us, and for £10 you get a ticket to the opening screening of the film. So beyond experiences and events, we've got some examples of sponsorship. So for Cycling Without Age, they offered businesses to pledge £6,000, which would buy a completely new trishaw, the vehicle that they use to transport the residents, and they can then use the business's logo and plant that on the trishaw. So it's very clear from anyone seeing it in action that it was backed by a particular business. And on a smaller scale, we've got the Dorset Wildlife Trust Dormouse project, where for £50 you could actually adopt your own dormouse and receive updates about its progress throughout the year. And thank you. So Sorona was an equine-based horse therapy project that crowdfunded with us recently. They were looking for new stables in the UK, and as a thank you reward, by pledging £25, your name would be inscribed into the supporters wall at the new stables. And another fantastic project, this is the Real Junk Food project down in Brighton, where for £5 they would give you a heartfelt thank you, and you'd receive a digital download of a favourite recipe book that they have. So I think particularly a digital download is very easy to do. It's completely free to do as well, but it's a nice bit of content and particular content that you can supply to your audience. So, as mentioned, Crowdfunder works with lots of councils and corporations throughout the UK. So do have a look at www.crowdfunder.co.uk to see all of the funds that are available. Gary, it'd be great to hear a bit more about your process when it came to applying for the funds, because in Gary's instance for Borrow Don't Buy, he received 2 pledges from both Santander and Plymouth Council. So it'd be great to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, certainly. We actually had a look into this when we first started setting up our crowdfunding campaign. We looked into the best way of kind of making the money and the best way that we could raise the most money effectively, because we knew our target was quite high. We knew our general audience of and the amount that we knew we could probably get to. So we knew that we would have to. We knew with our current audience we could probably get about halfway there. So we basically were looking at the best way to get the other half. So the other half that we needed was either by making sure the project got out to a lot more people, or looking at these partner projects and basically planning our campaign around a way that it would encourage them to look at donating to us. Luckily, we have got some really good contacts within Plymouth City Council, who are one of our contributors, who could give us a lot of support and pointed us in the right direction of how to make a campaign that they would be likely to support. And obviously, you guys at Crowdfunder were really helpful with pointing us in the right direction for Santander and things like that. The actual applying for the funds and getting the funds in was really simple. It's just filling in a couple of forms online. It was done within the hour or so, and then we got that funding through, in just about the right time that we needed it, and it helped us push us over into the stretch target, and it meant that we could do a little bit more with the money than we were planning to originate, which was even better.
Great, thank you, Gary. Yes, as you mentioned, you can apply to the funds during the creating stage of your project. So this is an example of the add project flow. So where you create your project and you'll go through the motions of adding your description, adding your rewards and your photos. And in the blue ribbon at the top, there's a tab called Extra Funding, Get Extra Funding. And by clicking on that, you'll be able to see, based on your location and the category you've chosen, what funds are available to you. And you can see from those pages the criteria that's available. And the idea is to make sure that you find a fund that is relevant to your project. You look at the criteria and you make sure that you are being really consistent and on point in terms of hitting all of those requirements for each of those funds. But essentially, very easy to do, and there's lots available. So do certainly have a look. That was www.crowdfunder.co.uk/funds. So that's all we've got time for this week. Gary, thank you so much for joining us. It's really interesting to hear your experience of crowdfunding and to share some of your secrets with our audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So everyone, we've got, before next week, start cracking on with the draft of your project description and brainstorming the reward ideas for your project. And finally, once you've got that all together, you can start adding your project on the website. In our next webinar, we'll be talking about running your project. So that will be discussing what you need to do once you're live, putting that plan in place and starting to bring the funds onto the page. And that's going to take place on next Thursday, 12 p.m, the 9th of November. In the meantime, do get in touch with any questions. You can contact us at support@crowdfunder.co.uk. But thank you very much for your attention and your ears and eyes for this afternoon. I hope that was helpful, and we're very much looking forward to catching up with you again next week. Many thanks and goodbye.